WTF, we're doing a podcast. I'm Niki.
And I'm Michelle. This is 50. Welcome to What the 50. Join us on our continued journey to simplify our lives.
We will seek the answers from the experts and offer tips, tools, and techniques to live your life with confidence and joy. Are we ready?
Let's go.
Hey, Michelle.
Hi, Niki.
So guess what? As you know, our podcast with Julianne was so long and so informative, we had to cut it up into two. So here we are.
Here we are. In Jamaica, we say it was so nice. We had to do it twice.
I've never heard that before.
Really?
Yeah,
man. Yeah, so that was quite an interesting talk with Julianne.
so informative.
Yes, so informative. A lot of stuff I did not know about Byron Lee.
You know what I didn't know that I thought was kind of funny? Not funny, I don't know if that's the right word. About the Dragoneers.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, I always thought that the dragon came from his
Chinese background.
heritage.
Yes, I thought so too. I didn't realize it was connected to St. George's. Yeah.
So that was really interesting.
Yes, it was. He held it together. So,
I guess we owe a lot to your favorite time of year, and I guess it's becoming
I was about to say that, right. So, I was about to say to you that you're just coming back from Trinidad Carnival and hearing so much about Mr. Lee and what he did for us and did for our country, did for the Caribbean, with doing what he does best, which is music.
And the impact he had on Trinidad Carnival.
And
well, that's all coming up. But
let's not forget what his impact internationally. I mean,
for sure,
being involved in the movie and, well, more than one movie, actually. Remember, James Bond and other movies.
Dr. No. And,
And
at Funicello, that I used to love those beach blanket.
No, but let me tell you,
movies.
I am just so fascinated with the impact.
They were before my time, though. I was just watching.
Make that note, right?
Yes. Before. Yeah.
But I'm just fascinated with all that he did. Well, I mean, the Dragoneers were around for 50 years, right? That's a long time, but he achieved a lot during that time.
For sure.
I really didn't know. I was just so busy enjoying the Dragon Dance and Nanny Wine and all of those songs that I just didn't realize the impact that he had.
I know. So this is our last podcast for this season.
Right.
And we're going into Carnival, and we still haven't figured out which parties we're going to, right?
No, and there's so many parties.
I know. We did the breakfast party. We did rum for breakfast, and that was good.
And there are other parties. There's another breakfast party coming up. There's a Cool Effect this weekend.
I know. I'm going to miss that one.
Yeah, and then there's the real breakfast party, Sun Nation breakfast parties coming up. But there's so many parties, though. But do you know that Michelle is coming to Jamaica?
He is, and your favorite song, right?
Yeah, I have to be there to see him.
So he has that song, Welcome Home, and I believe it's with Agent Sasco.
Right. So I love the fusion.
Right.
I love the soca dancehall fusion, and I love Sasco. So I'm looking forward to seeing him do that live.
Right.
But I'm looking forward to this year. This year's songs were pretty good.
Yeah, it was good songs. Mental Day is one, and Like Yourself. Those you're
just spitting out the songs, Niki.
And I'm terrible with names and words.
Yeah, but you're getting them.
Right. But Trevor's favorite song is something about friends better than pocket money. Sometimes with that.
Okay.
You know, is that a Jamaican saying?
That's Jamaican.
You think it's not a Trinidad saying?
I don't know if it's a Trinidad saying. Maybe they're using Trinidad as well.
But anyhow, if you guys know, let us know, please.
But it's Jamaican for sure. I'm claiming it. It's Jamaican.
No, I definitely know it's Jamaican, but I just didn't know if it was region wide.
Maybe let's see. Maybe we have some Trinidadians that can tell us.
I know, because I don't know if you know, because when we lived in Canada, even with the kids now, where they're back and forth to Canada, some of the things that we say, we like, do they say that in Canada?
Or Jamaica?
Jamaica. It's like, because somebody's like, no, we don't say that in Canada, or we don't say that in
right.
Yeah. So.
All right, so we're gonna tune in again to Julianne and get the second part of the little chat about Byron Lee.
Yeah.
And I'm sure our listeners and viewers will enjoy it as much as we do.
For sure. So much information, such
great information.
Right.
Yeah. He's a legend for sure.
And we'll see everybody back
very soon.
Right.
Have a great Easter. Enjoy Carnival.
Eat your bun and cheese.
Yes.
There needs to be a Byron Lee museum. What do you think?
There needs to be. Did he ever write his book?
We're in the middle of getting all of that material together. There is a book on the
Awesome.
table right now, but there's so many multifaceted roles that he played.
Yes.
You are right. It was deliberate. It was strategic. He was very thoughtful in what he did. So with the band members standing up, and one thing, Michelle, that you'll know, well, you won't know, but if you speak to your parents and your grandparents, when a Byron Lee fete was to start, if the event is to start at 9 p.m., the lights would go down, and at 8:59 and at 9 p.m. it would come up and it would say, "Ladies and gentlemen, the show is to begin." And
let me correct you. That I actually know. That I actually know.
Okay, good.
Because
So you
I've
do.
seen it. I've seen his performance, and I know he doesn't start at 9:30. He starts at 9.
Right.
And
Correct.
when you get to the event, you're not seeing sound check and people running around changing things.
Correct.
Everything was so organized. I mean, it was a first world show.
Nice.
And this was
Byron and the Dragonaires.
thank you for recognizing that. And he also put on concerts in the 60s and matinees, and people like Marcia Griffith would tell you. So they used to have what was now referred to as, I guess, the Rising Star Talent Search or something. So he used to go on, and sometimes on a weekend, on the Saturday and Sunday, he would have on a Sunday 2 shows, an early show and a late show, with the same band members performing. And what he used to do was he would go out and he'd find local singers. They'd audition for him. And Marcia, I was just with her this week, will tell you that at 12 years of age, she'd been trying regularly to play with him. And she got the opportunity to be in an area where he was going to have a show the following day. He was setting up, and Ronnie Nasrallah came to my dad and said, "B, listen, I have this girl that you need to hear sing." And Daddy was like, "Look, we're full. We can't do it now. You know, our repertoire is completed, our presentation." And he said, "Please listen to her." And Daddy's like, "Look, Ronnie, we can't do it now." And he said, this little girl stood out from behind Ronnie. She had little pigtails on, and she was 12 years old. And up till yesterday, Marcia reminded me, Miss Marcia Griffiths, that her first opportunity to perform was in Easter Monday in 1961. And that was because, or 1964, forgive me. And that was because Byron Lee allowed her to sing on his stage show, and everything she is today is because of him. And there were many others like that. Dennis Brown came and sang on a couple of our shows when he was a little boy, and he could not reach a microphone, so they had to put a milk box crate that he could stand up. These are people who had never gotten the opportunity to be heard before. But his formula, Michelle and Niki, was that he would listen to artists that could mimic Otis Redding and all these different great North American artists.
And he loved Ray Charles.
Correct. All of them, the greats, the Ray Charles, all of them. And what he would do is the first set, the band would play the backing instruments, and these artists would sing, all of these top Billboard chart songs. And then the second set, when they would come back, was when these artists would get to then sing their own songs that they had written.
So he had
correct. So that's how it kind of slipped in, where they loved them, they listened to them, they respected them because they were playing an Otis Redding song or forgive me, I can't remember now who those artists back then were because I wasn't born. But and then you'd come and you'd have Jimmy Cliff, who did the rendition of Otis Redding. Forgive me if I'm getting them incorrect, but then he'd come back with his original, Toots and the Maytals, the Blues Busters from Jamaica. All of these greats that went on to be so instrumental in the movement and the evolution and the popularizing of Jamaican music, that went on to be great stars out there, got their opportunity to play regularly on stage shows from these events that Dad would set up. So those are the early days, and he was very instrumental. Then when 1989 came around and he started, so when he went to Trinidad in the 70s, my dad was also a production man. So we were the distributor for JBL and Studio Reeboks. We built studios. He built the JBC studios, that is now RJR. He was, again, right place at the right time, and instrumental from his business angle on that aspect, being a producer in studio and understanding all of those things. When he went down to Trinidad every year, he would send down a 40-foot container with all of his equipment, because he was the representative in Jamaica for these big sound systems and these big components and these pieces of electrical equipment. And he would take his trailer down along with his generators. And he would go to every event and he would blow them away. So it was like he was envied down there. And there was always a lot of rivalry, not just as a band performing, and never with his original music really, but just going and copying and presenting dances, but really from the sound aspect. So
Okay.
he also was instrumental in Trinidad in revolutionizing how they did their PA and stuff. Because we were the distributors, he would be giving feedback to the manufacturers in Japan and in LA, and they would create, or they did create, a line or a series of speakers that were actually designed specifically for our bottom end sound and our horn sound, which is different from what the North American R&B music was. So again, he wore many hats, right place, right time. That was a catalyst in making him be this force that he was.
Wow.
So then that respect was there in Trinidad, and he worked with a lot of great engineers, a lot of great producers, and a lot of the great musicians loved him because they were able to gel and they were able to come up with these things and create and develop and be exposed. So in 1989, when he was bringing back the sound to Jamaica, he slowed it down, and then he said, well, guess what? No, we're coming to Jamaica with this music that nobody really knows on a mass level. How do we get them on board? By the way, he was referred to as the Pied Piper. So when he went to the sponsors in 89, they all followed suit. And Byron Lee was a Pied Piper. Whenever he did anything, people just flocked. The masses flocked. People loved and respected because he loved and respected them so much. Everything was all about giving love through music and just sharing this joy through music. When he did events, as you said, when the show started on time, it didn't start there. I, as a little girl, went and held gate for him. Child labor, by the way, I'll tell everybody that. So, and I used to hold gate from I was 13, and he put the fear of God into me. He said, let me tell you something. You don't let anybody, man, a few words. So when he spoke, very short, unlike me who speaks for long, when you have somebody at the gate coming in, you make sure they come in with a smile on their face. Because if you send them in and they're agitated or upset, it makes it that much harder for him to convert them to having a good event. He believed in the repeat customer. He believed in customer service. He believed in giving everybody a lot more than what they paid for. It went even further. When he was doing access to the venue, he would strategically make sure that parking was easily accessible, structured, disciplined, organized. Lighting was there. Everything was seamless coming in. Now, in those days, Michelle, a lot of people did not understand the various elements that took place in having a successful event as producers or promoters, down to the fact that he needed to make sure that whoever with the bar service was, that they would not be a hiccup, so that his concern was always the patron's joy and enjoyment. He said
customer experience,
for sure, right? He said that they're coming for escapism. They are coming there to have a good time. So you have to ensure that everything from the bathroom facility to the seating to the music, it wasn't just about the music alone. So again, there was a lot on his plate. He was a multifaceted, talented individual. He was a very hard boss, very hard taskmaster. He did not praise you a lot, but if he asked you to do something, it meant he had the confidence in you and that he believed that you could do it. And that was anybody who Byron Lee asked to do something fell over themselves to try and fulfill it, because we enjoyed being around him. He shared a lot. And whenever the success was there, he didn't take it for himself. He would say it was his team or whatever, but whenever the failure was there, he took it himself. He said, it's my fault and I'm sorry. He never threw anybody under the bus that I know of in my experience. But when he got you behind closed doors, trust me, you got an earful. And you didn't want to get behind those closed doors. So in 1989, no, he said, I'm bringing this music to Jamaica. People are going to stand there. They don't know the songs. What do we do? He created the instructional dances. So Michelle, moving to the left, moving to the right, up, down, all evolved because of Byron Lee taking that sound from an outside culture and bringing it into a very rock hard culture, a tight, very narrow-minded community. So he did that in the first year. If you listen to Carnival Killer, which was on his album for Jamaica Carnival 1990, so all the events he was doing before, he converted to blowouts. He gave up all his revenue events and he called them blowouts. And those 3 blowouts or 4 blowouts was for you to come and learn the songs.
Okay.
Learn the songs and learn the dances.
Yes.
Learn the songs and learn the dances. He and Denise Plummer in the first year came up with the song Carnival Killer. And in it, you'll hear, look at Byron Lee going through Halfway Treat, made references to Jamaican, Jamaicanizing. He slowed down the tempo. listen, he was brilliant in his ability to know what needed to be done to connect.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
All of that was driven from his love of his country and his respect for the mass people.
Mm-hmm.
He always said,
I think that we could be here for hours listening to these fascinating stories and details.
Mm-hmm.
So I think probably it's going to need a part 2.
okay.
But for sure, like honestly, he sounded like an incredible, incredible man. Very astute business person, very visionary. But what I'd love to ask you right now is,
yes.
what would you think his vision for like what has it come to fruition? What he had envisioned for Jamaica Carnival or for Carnival in Jamaica?
I was on the road with him. I was on his music truck in 1990 when we went down. He started at Immaculate High School.
Mm-hmm.
And when he went down Constant Spring and he hit the corner of where All Fresh is now, which is at Aspen and Constant Spring Road, and he looked up and he looked down. I was standing next to him, and whenever you are around him when he's working, you stand silently until he can pay you attention because he's trying to get the mix.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to get that mix, that sweet sound, which he called it. And he looked over at me and he actually was overcome with emotion and he teared up and he actually cried because he looked down to the side and there was a dread in a t-shirt that looked up. Now we have to understand. People turned out, we didn't know when we started that Sunday. We're like, oh my God, we're going to go. There's just going to be these 1,000 or 100 people. And, what are we going to encounter? It was unknown. There was no guarantee. There was nothing. People were a bit nervous. So we're going to get pelleted. Now you have to understand who bought the costumes were a lot of uptown Jamaicans and corporate entities that their staff was introduced to it because of them being sponsors and stuff.
Right.
So there was not really a mass external participation. It was a little trickle, but it wasn't this huge phenomenon. But the people that showed up on the road were unbelievable. They were literally like ants carrying the music trucks down the road. It was such a massive, thick amount of people. And he was a live band performing. And he loved them so much that he dropped back behind and he created and introduced also some of their music into it. And when you look behind the Byron Lee truck, there'd be at least 5,000 people, at least a minimal. And then he went to the what is now Emancipation Park. And we did that free concert, and he brought in Tantan and Saga Boy, those huge stick figures that were. I mean, it was phenomenal. He was so thankful and grateful that he actually was brought to tears by the fact that Arasta and many of them looked up and loved the music, and they were telling him thank you. We put 4,000 people in 1994 on the road with Jamaica Carnival as one entity alone. His vision for Jamaica Carnival was always that the brand that he owned, Jamaica Carnival, we turned over to a committee to oversee many little mass camps operating under this umbrella that would market branded Jamaica Carnival, ensuring that there was certain standards that were maintained on the road to protect, because loss of life happened in many different countries because of things not being structured properly, with paying attention to the respect of being around the trucks. There was a guideline, and Zuki Trucking and Big Joe were two instrumental people in working along with that and developing what is out there today. Ian Wong provided the hydration for the people on the road with Big Joe VW van trucks, giving away to our participants hydration. So Michelle and Niki, that's very important, because prior to that, nowhere in Trinidad, except for the very small, I think there was one band called Hearts that did it, or they didn't give hydration on the road. It wasn't an inclusive event. We, Jamaica, spoiled all other carnivals throughout the world, forced them to elevate it now to being an inclusive event. Mm-hmm. But because we were breaking into grounds that were so difficult, we had to make it appealing.
Of course.
People were afraid. They didn't want to go to a vendor on the side of the road. No, he used this opportunity and got community participation, because when we were going through Halfway Tree and when we were going down into Mountain View and we were going down Constant Spring, we had meetings prior with all of the vendors on the side of the road, giving them the opportunity, because he wanted this to be income revenue, generating income for the city.
Right.
Dead period of time, which is why he chose it. We had our independence, we had our Heroes Day, we had summer vacations, we had nothing. Jamaica was dead from January to April. So Byron Lee chose for Carnival to take place the week after Easter Sunday. We earmarked and grabbed that day for ourselves. And that was one of the mandates in him with having Carnival in Jamaica Carnival. The other one was that it needed to be going through halfway tree and that the public would have access to it. Okay. And the third mandate that he had was it never must exceed an 80-20 ratio where the majority of the music being played was calypso or soca. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then it was taken over by another genre. But the fusion was very important to him because the following year he came out with Soca Butterfly and Dancehall Soca, and he did Soca Tati. So he was taking some of the Jamaican songs and he was also putting a calypso or a soca spin onto it. Mm-hmm. We had a fusion where Beenie Man came involved one year and he was on a music truck playing. And because he wanted this to be a reflection of a Jamaicanized carnival. And it was really going in that way and it was taking place. And then there were a lot of factors that took place and made it unaffordable. A lot of mass bands didn't understand the sacrifice that Byron Lee made. I mean, he owned a chain of record stores, he owned a manufacturing company, all of his events, his sound company, his everything. He put into it Master's Horse, Master's Grass, and they just saw the success and thought it was just easy success. They didn't realize how many things that he took and converted, and he subsidized the road parade and he subsidized all of that. And where it is at today, I do believe that, first of all, I am thankful to all the promoters and all the party keepers and the massmans that are out there. I'm thankful to them that they do still see it as viable. I do think that they should acknowledge and give recognition to, and not just trivially. I mean, it was a huge, massive investment.
Of course.
He did for our culture and our country. In 2003, when Supreme Ventures came on board, Brian George spoke about the hundreds of millions of dollars that have been generated out of it, how tourism and how all of these things came on board and boomed during a dormant period, how all the sandal makers and the hairdressers and the vendors on the side of the road were also able to benefit. A lot of homes, a lot of children were educated out of it that would not have had that opportunity before. Mm-hmm. And by the way, there was absolutely no government intervention. We had to pay Jamaica Tourist Board for the first 3 years to do everything. There and after, they gave us access to their journalists globally. Mm-hmm. And they would come down, and I'll never forget Digital Audio, one of the record stores being converted as the hub where you came to get accreditation. And our whole point of sale system was removed from our record stores and put in the mass camps to be able to sell and generate and keep track of all these people. I mean, he literally shut down all other businesses. He stopped touring for the 5 months it took to produce this during the season. Not to mention, production started in August the year before. So all of that going down to the islands and getting the costume builders to come over to Jamaica to source the raw material, to try and do all of this and put it together. And I don't think that really has ever truly been acknowledged and credited. Only some of the old school people can tell you the stories. A lot of his friends gave of their time for free. They were all a part of this great movement. It was a deeply respected energy. As I said, Zuki Trucking came on board unknown what to do, and they developed this together. Dad taught them what he saw down there. And Zuki's son, Dwayne, now is the master of it. And he has maintained the original principles, which is great, which is fabulous. And I think without that infrastructure, we would not be where we are today. Ian Wong and his evolution into Frenchman also was a catalyst, because he then catered to the upper echelon, which was great. When we hit the road in 1990, you saw politicians and office managers dancing aside equal. And Dad's motto was, regardless of race, color, creed, or religion, everybody was equal that day.
Perfect. Love that.
What is a little disappointing is that it is not affordable. And what I would love to do is I would love to see someone take an interest in more the cultural, indigenous aspect of it, which obviously would not be it's not as commercially beneficial. It's not as profitable. But we need to be able to do that, to be able to see. And we tried in 2017 with Jamaica Carnival, and we saw some costume designers come on board from Edna Manley School. We ran a competition, and the Byron Lee Foundation subsidized it and gave, grants and prizes, monetary prizes to these amazingly talented individuals that would be able to build costumes that doesn't look like Rio Carnival, which is what we have on the road today in Jamaica, but look more Jamaicanized. And they were beautiful. Don't get me wrong. They were equally as beautiful and far less expensive because of the wire bending and the feathers and the importing and whatever. That's something I see that's missing now that I'd love to see. I'd love to see it more accessible. Downtown Carnival fights every year, and they do get the support of Bacchanal and the underwriting and stuff like that. I love to see that it's taken off in such a space with UA Carnival. UA Carnival it needs support. Please, corporate Jamaica, please, all of you out there, help these young entrepreneurs and these designers and these people.
UA Carnival is definitely a way to support
for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. And what's missing tremendously, which is what he did, was for 17 years, he took it to the rural areas. So we had a Montego Bay Night Mass Carnival road parade. We had Negril Carnival. We were out in St. Thomas. And I think that we definitely need to go back into the rural areas so that the ownership is not just in Kingston alone, because eventually we are going to reach a stage where it's only seen as an imported uptown item. The spectators are drastically cut down now on the side. So find a balance between sponsor and wrestler and the public. We kept it in color. We were very regimented. So we had sections, and you had to stay in the section that you bought in, because Michelle, if you notice, that would then be the parade or the spectacle or the pageantry. When you see all the
part of those bands, and I mean, for many years, my husband and I participated, and we had friends in other eras, and we just couldn't go from one era to the next. But I think that speaks to Byron Lee's discipline. And he brought that to various areas, whether it's the music, whether it's the parade, whatever it is. But, we've just learned so much more about Byron Lee listening to you. And I know that Niki and I would just love to hear so much more. And I definitely think we need to do a part 2.
Yes, for sure. Because we could go on here forever, Julianne.
I'm telling you. And I mean, he is a musical icon. And I don't know how many younger people recognize that nowadays and know the stories. There's so many stories. But just with Byron Lee, he said there's no life without music. And I think that that's a great quote on which we can close this episode, because he brought so much to the Jamaican music, Jamaican people, to the Caribbean
and the cultural landscape.
Absolutely. And just internationally, he really brought so much. And there's a lot to learn from him. I mean, he left a legacy behind. And I think that just even as something as simple as the colors in the band and keeping it together speaks to his discipline. It speaks to his commitment. It speaks to his professionalism and just his passion.
And the insight, Michelle, I have to cut you. The keeping them in the band was not just discipline, but what it did was it put on a pageantry that took out thousands of people. We had almost 100,000 people at the stadium car park that came thereafter because they were on the roadsides in thousands, tens of thousands. That's missing today because of the not keeping that presentation together, that colored presentation. It needs to be a show coming, a spectacle that will bring back out the grandparents, the parents, and the grandchildren. In order for us to get that buy-in, it can't just be from the person buying the costume alone. It needs to be healthy.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you're saying the discipline, but it was actually a bigger vision than discipline. It was the fact that you had to appeal to the country to buy in and come out on the street sides, which then the sponsors benefited from because of the exposure. The people on the side of the road benefited in the vendors because then they were able to sell that much more product from their carts or from their stalls. And then they themselves got this spectacle that could be seen, and they could feel this buy-in and this ownership, that it wasn't just an exclusive event, that it was inclusive of all different participants. Wow. So we could go on, and I'm so sorry.
Thank you so much, Julianne. It has been really informative and really a pleasure to have you on as we head into Carnival season.
Thank you for having us, and please enjoy. The music is fabulous this year. The talent is just amazing, and we do have a lot of Jamaicans participating now. You had a collab the other day between Taurus Riley and Patrice Roberts. You have with, it's just amazing to see
absolutely the growth.
Still evolving. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for coming on, for sure.
Okay. All right, ladies. Have a good one.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of What the 50. Please show your love and encouragement by sharing, subscribing, and leaving a review wherever you're listening.
And don't forget to like and follow us on Instagram. And please join our active Facebook group at what.the50.